20, April 2020. A lot of things to talk about, but first let's make sure it's sharing out and give a few people time to get on, because we know Facebook and other social media don't actually feed out my feeds. A lot of other people that are not extreme left have the same complaints that our social media doesn't get shared out, even though I've got almost 700,000 followers just on Facebook. Hello, Lois. It never goes out to any more than a tiny fraction. Maybe if I was paying them a lot of money for advertisement, it would. Hey, Gladys. Hello in Brazil. I hope everything's well there. We'll talk about a few things that could even affect you in Brazil. More on the line of resilience, actually. Let's just let a few people get on. And so please share it out. And hey, Penny, in stormy Mississippi. Yeah, I was just looking at the weather, actually. It looks like you've got a severe weather warning, right? Not just Mississippi, but a whole swath there, like the whole that whole area that's been smashed a few times recently. Ryan, hello in UK, Leah, and Ryan, I'm surprised to see so many yeah. Well, I will block you if I could. Let me see, because I don't need you. You're not wanted. You can go jump off a bridge, Ryan. Actually, I can probably block you on my other page over here.
Ryan, I'm surprised to see so many.
Let's see. Anyway, let's get started. And let's get started. A few things to talk about today here, Virginia, and everybody else around the world that's on here right now. New York City's got some food problems, as you may have seen. They need about $170 million, apparently, just to cover a food shortage. It's not really a food shortage. It's people are out of work. And so they don't have the money to buy food, is what it sounds like to me from listening to the mayor talk, and also listening to other, reading reports and listening to other people talk. The problem in New York City is just not a physical food shortage yet, but just out of work. Hey, in Mississippi. Hey, in UK, Angela. And right, let's get started, by the way. Yeah, Gladys says I look skinnier by the day. It's because I haven't eaten in 11 days. So this is it. This is my 11th day. You see that? My 11th day with zero food. And I don't mean one meal a day. I don't mean liquid diet. I don't mean any of that stuff. I mean zero food. And by the way, those down below, those QR codes, are the way you can donate. There's many ways to donate. Patreon, you can see, is the best way, actually. And then there's PayPal. All you have to do is point your phone camera at one of these, like Venmo, and it'll pop up with the app to actually donate. So if you just point your camera at that, your phone camera now, or save it or screenshot it or hold it. But anyway, and I've got this one here as well, the Cash app. But some people ask for that, but I put it up, but nobody's donated on that. But anyway, yeah, I really appreciate it. We'll get started here in a second. Many to talk about. Kim says, yeah, 22 million filed for unemployment. Yeah, it's a huge, huge problem, as you can imagine. Let me get these things out of my ears. It sounds like you can hear me, right? Everything's loud and clear. Actually, I can turn it up a little bit. I'm not seeing any red lights over there. Make it a little louder for you in case you're driving down in your car, something along those lines. All right. All righty, here we go. Hey, Sonia. Let's talk about a few things. One is resilience. Maybe you saw my Go Bar Gas dispatches that I put up in, when was that, 2010 or so, or 2009? I wrote those dispatches with the specific intent, it must have been 2010, for General Petraeus to pick up Go Bar Gas in Afghanistan. Go Bar Gas is domestic biogas. If you look on my Facebook page, you will see a link to those two dispatches. And those are really good to read. The Go Bar, just read them. Read the Go Bar Gas dispatches. It's very, very good. And but what we're really talking about, though, is resilience. Resilience has been a key word. Well, for some of us, it's just lifelong resilience, right? But now it's becoming more and more mainstream resilience, like having enough food, having water security, and not depending on the government. You know, with these not food shortages, but people out of work in New York City, and they apparently need $170 million just to cover that. I read today that they've given out about 1 million free meals just in the last month in New York City. 1 million free meals, and it's increasing. And so, you know, obviously a lot of people must not have had food security at home, which is understandable. A lot of people are living in the richest country in the world, hand to mouth. And so, I mean, what can you say? And so, but let's talk about resilience. You know, I've been saying since January that this looks like it's coming, and it is, well, it's here. So it was accurate. Nobody knew in January what was going to happen, but now we're seeing it actually unfold. And a lot of people, you know, it turns out that, you know, we didn't have a strategic mask supply. Of course, we may have thought that we would have that, but we don't. And so we also used to have a strategic grain supply in the United States, which we no longer have. Now, the people that need food in New York City seems to be mostly they're just out of work. There's no real food shortage yet. And I specifically said yet because there's many things, balls up in the air, any of which that gets dropped, and we'll have food shortages in the United States. And remember, you have to be prepared. The government's not going to be there to protect you. We don't even have we didn't have masks, right? You might have thought that, or assumed maybe, that we would have masks, but we didn't. That's why I had masks for years. I didn't know that our country didn't even stockpile masks. And neither did any of the states, apparently. Did any state actually stockpile masks? Which brings up another issue. You know, with responsibility comes, with freedoms comes responsibility. We have states' rights across the United States. You know, like California or Florida or New York, every state has its own rights. It has its own authorities and responsibilities. Was there any state that had enough masks? Which brings up the next question. Is there any state that has its own state food stockpiles? Any? I don't know. Any that are sufficient to go, say, 6 months or a year, preferably a couple of years. I mean, that's a long time. That would require very serious warehouses. You know, if there's major interruptions, not to my knowledge, in the United States apparently no longer has a strategic grain reserve. And so if we have severe interruptions, then there could be some changes in life. Which brings up some other issues on resilience. I've got enough food myself. I've stockpiled it. My electricity could go out, of course. I'm fine. I've lived in jungles and deserts out there alone for a long time, sleeping on the ground with the scorpions and all that. I got no problem with that. Camping in your home with no electricity is fine. But obviously, if you have a refrigerator and that sort of thing that has any perishables in it, then you don't want that to go out. And so I have backup because I got solar, right, and battery backups and that sort of thing. And so, I mean, there's some built-in resilience there. But I was thinking today, what am I going to do with all of this? Yeah, Jan Benning, the Mormon stockpile food. We should talk about that actually in Utah, especially a lot of them in Utah. We should talk about that. But anyway, on resilience, I'm always thinking of ways, how can I become more resilient without any investment? You know what I mean? Or very small investment. Because oftentimes there's just little tweaks that you can do that can make you much more resilient, right? Just not like, you know, doesn't take much money or any money often. One tweak for me, as an example, I just thought of it yesterday, and I never got it from any preppers actually. Maybe some have thought of it. I'm sure they have. But if you have a lot of meat in your freezer, if you're not a vegetarian, I'm not, what are you going to do if all of your power goes out or just your refrigerator, your freezer goes out? Well, I've got one redundancy on that. I've got another freezer, right? So in that other freezer, I've got long-term storage goods like rice that I can take out, and they don't really need to be in the freezer. But I keep them there because they'll last longer, right? But So my first plan is if my primary freezer goes out, I'll take out some of the things in the second one that don't need to be there, like bags of rice, right? And then I'll just put the meat in there, right? But if they both go out, or the electricity goes out and my solar goes out, so I'm down to everyth's out, right? What am I going to do with that meat? I don't want to waste it, because I hate to waste anything. Well, I just thought up yesterday while I was fasting and laying down and starting to meditate, and I'm like, well, I was actually thinking about what I'm going to do with that meat if everything goes out. You know what? A simple solution. I'll just use a pressure cooker. I'm going to go find a pressure cooker tomorrow, and I'm going to look for one of these big ones that they cook with on the sides of the road. And so if everything goes out and the meat in my freezer is going bad, I'm just going to put it in a pressure cooker and put it on my gas stove, because I've got a couple gas stoves as redundancy, right? So if electricity goes out, I got gas, right? So I'll just pressure cook all the meat, and then I'll start a hunter stew. A hunter stew, I've talked about these before. With a hunter stew, basically you just put a bunch of stuff in there and keep it going and never turn it off, right? Just simmer. Like British do that, and Thais do that too. Like some Thais, they'll have like a restaurant that's got the same stew going for like 40 years. Literally 40 years. I'm not exaggerating. 40 years. Like, the life of an elephant. I've mentioned this on a podcast before. British do it as well. Like I think English in particular, maybe Scots do it, or Irish. I don't know. But they'll keep these things going. Like one of them was going for something crazy, like 400 years. I don't remember. It was in the news. And the health department finally made them shut it down and clean the thing out, because they just kept adding stuff to it century after century. But you can do that. Like I keep hunter stew. They call them perpetual stew as well. You can look it up maybe on YouTube. And so if everything goes out, I'll take all the meat, put it in a big pressure cooker, cook it, and I'll just make a hunter stew out of it. I'll just be eating all that meat for, a month. You just keep it very going so you don't burn much gas. You can turn it off sometimes, actually. And so that's a way of doing it. Oh, speaking of canning, Penny's talking about, I'll start making my own pickles soon. Well, this isn't a real mason ball jar. You know how you can tell a real ball jar, by the way? They've got actual measure. First of all, they don't have this thing on them, do they? I don't think this is. And also, they'll have a measuring thing on the side, right? They'll have a measure, so you can use it. You can use a ball mason jar. A mason jar is this type with the screw lid, right? And that was invented in, I don't know, 1840 something. I don't remember. Anyway, the guy's name was Mason, and so that was his last name. But that's when they started putting these screw lids on them, right? And he patented it. And so there's the curve type and the ball type, and maybe some other types. But the ball, it says ball, but it's not really ball type. Because if it's a ball, I don't think, first of all, they really have the handle. Maybe they do. And then they have a measuring thing. But the curve type don't have the measuring unless something's changed. But yeah, so, you can make your own pickles so easy. You just get some cucumbers and wash them off, and, put a few cloves of garlic in there and some dill and some sea salt. Really, that's about all you need, right? You'll have pickles in 3 or 4 days. So there's so many things that you can do that are really cheap. Canning, you don't necessarily have to have a giant pressure cooker for canning, because you can ferment things, you can pickle things very easily without heat or very little heat. You don't need the pressure cooker for a lot of that. But I want to turn it over to questions very quickly, but ties. But I want to say a few things, and then we'll just turn it over to questions, and I'll try to answer as many as I can, because people are trying to get questions answered, like Hong Kong. What's going on in Hong Kong? As you know, about 2 days ago, the China Nazis, is what Hong Kongers call them, police, arrested about 15 of the government officials in Hong Kong. So now my contacts in Hong Kong, and you may see some on the news, it looks like there's going to be more uprising, because there is a real insurgency. They're not protests, right? Which I've been saying for a long time now. And so it's not going away. So expect action sometime, maybe July 1st, I don't know. But expect action on the streets again, despite despite the virus and despite the very high education level of Hong Kongers and awareness of the virus, they're ready to fight. And so I think personally they should lay low. I tell them that all the time, and let the virus do what the virus is going to do, preserve their strength, preserve their health and their families, and then prepare to fight later. Right now they should just be gathering information and gather all the information they can gather up about, everything they can about the police and other enemy camps. And because we don't know what's going to go. So don't make any decisive fights now, and don't further encourage China to invade right now, which they could very well do. And so, and I'm going to go to questions soon, but Thais are talking about, I'm watching the news and I'm listening to my friends around America, and you see the protest out in Michigan and that sort of thing and other places, and the president saying, basically revolt, and which shocked a lot of people. And then some people I've seen are like, this is a terrible time to bring up Second Amendment rights, don't you think? And other, like in defense of those, while others like me are like, actually, it's the most important time to bring up Second Amendment, because right now, people are trying to grab the weapons, right? And they're not going to get them. They're going to end up in a shootout, like a serious shootout. They're not going to get the weapons. This is more fundamental than a lot of people think. They'll end up in bloodshed if they try to confiscate weapons in the United States. If you're not American, you're not going to get what I'm talking about. This is deep cultural stuff. We don't trust the government. Anybody that does is a darn fool. Because look what's happened here with the virus. No strategic mask supply. And our Surgeon General telling everybody, hey, don't wear masks, and no strategic grain supply. No effective plans at state or federal level to deal with this. No state or federal level even stockpiles for this. The government's not going to take care of you, period. And so you have to take care of yourself. Likewise with law enforcement. As the virus goes its way through various law enforcement agencies, they're not going to be there for you. It's you for yourself. You're going to have to be there for yourself and your own family, bottom line. And so Thais are sending, I'm in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. I love this place. It's calm here. Everything's fine right now, although I think it's a calm before a storm. But a viral storm. Thais are passing around videos from the United States and like, Americans are going crazy. Thais generally like Americans on the whole quite a lot, just like a lot of Americans love Thailand. And so we've got a lot of affection, but Thais, like a lot of people, look at Americans, are like, wow, look at all these videos are passing around in the last couple of days. Look at Americans are going crazy. They're actually using those terms like they're actually going out to force themselves to go to work. They're like making the government let them go to work, which is it doesn't reconcile with a lot of Thais. Like, why are Americans ready to face this virus to go to work? And I've told people for years, there's this idea that Americans are lazy. And there are a lot of lazy Americans. I get it. But in reality, we're not lazy. As a whole, as a people, we're not lazy at all. There's a lot of lazy Americans, and you see those people. And we actually have a word for lazy people in America. We call them trash. Call them trash. And Japanese, I think, are quite similar. Japanese never curse, right? They don't curse. The biggest insult they can give to somebody is to say that he's lazy or she's lazy. And to me, it's the same thing. I'm like, he's lazy or she's lazy. That's the same thing as me saying that guy's trash. He's lazy. If I say somebody's lazy, just change the word for trash, because that's what I mean. And most Americans are not trash. They work hard, and we respect hard work. I respect hardworking people. I mean, if you've made it big in your life and that sort of thing, you might want to, just spend the rest of your life scuba diving and that sort of thing. I get it. That's fine. You've somehow done that. But the people that are just waiting around, waiting for somebody to do something for them, we call them trash. And so a lot of, it seems to be shocking a lot of Thais that so many Americans are going out there risking not even wearing masks, which I think is foolish, but maybe they don't even have them. It's still foolish. They can make them. And, out there without mask, pouring on the streets, sometimes with weapons, which is fine with me. People are saying that they're going to take American weapons, and that's when you need to show a force so that you don't have to get into a shooting match. Ideally, any violence will be long averted in advance. But like in Virginia, that governor, he's begging for violence. And if he gets it, you think people like me are going to go, oh, that's so terrible. No, we're going to go, we got a Second Amendment. If you try to take our weapons, we're going to shoot you. You know what I mean? It's that simple. It's not, it's no joke. It's not negotiable. It is absolutely not negotiable. And for every reason in the world, look at Hong Kong right now. 15 lawmakers or 15 government officials just arrested in about the last 48 hours, right? By a hostile foreign country, or at least by at the whim of Beijing. It's the Hong Kong police doing it. You start doing that in the United States. Let's say you come down and start, arresting the Florida governor and our senators and representatives. You're like, what? You're coming down here to steal our governor and our representatives and our senator? Hey, we're going to have a shootout. You're not going to get them. You're not going to take the mayor of my town unless he really or she really did some criminal act, in which case you can have them. But if it's just they have some view that you don't like and you want to come and arrest, county sheriffs or something like that, we're going to stand beside the sheriff's department and we're going to be like, hey, we're guns up with you, sheriff department. You're not going to take our sheriff. You're not going to take Grady Judge. Judge, you're not going to take him. You know what I mean? Anyway, so, but the Thais see that, and they see Americans want to go out to work. And, I don't want no damn handout. I've never got anything from the government. I don't want a handout from the government. I don't want $1,200 check. I'm not even going to apply for it. I don't want it. I want to be able to go to the end of my life and say, I never took a handout from the U.S. government, so I never have, and I don't plan on doing it. Hopefully it'll never come to that. If I'm starving to death, I'll take it. But I've earned it as well. But I'm not going, I don't want that $1,200 check. I'm not saying anything bad about people that take it. You should take it, especially if you got kids or whatever. You got to get it. Nothing wrong with it. And, this is how I make my money. People help me out. That's it. PayPal, Patreon, Venmo. That's it. All right. By the way, speaking of resilience, again, this is my 11th day of fasting, 0 food. Soy's been doing it too. My friend Soy. Soy is Kai's mother, right? Little Kai. Soy and I started fasting at the same time, 11 days ago at 5:30 in the afternoon on whatever date that was. And she's doing fine. This is the longest she's ever gone. She did 4 days before, and she had some trepidation on going further. And I said, you did the hard part. That first 3 or 4 days, it's not that hard, but come on. The first 3 or 4 days is the hard part. You get to the 5th day, it starts to get a little easier. 6th day, a lot easier. 7th day, hey, it's easy. 8th day, 9th day, 10th day. We're at the end of the 11th day. It'll be 12th day soon, right? And so it's not hard now. Actually, it's very enjoyable. And I called her today, and we've been chatting on internet and saying, enjoy the fast while it lasts, because you're not going to be able to fast that much longer, and you're going to have to eat again. And then, but this is so enjoyable. It's something cleansing about it. It's something spiritual, actually. Like, I can quiet down. I can be very quiet here and lay down and meditate, and it changes you in a very positive way. And try fasting, seriously. Try to go for, and then Soy, we're talking on the phone today. She's like, I've decided I'm going for 21 days because one of her friends did. And I said, okay, I'll do it with you. We'll go to 21 then. I'm not going to stop at 15 or something. I'll go with you to 21. So Soy and I are going to go to 21 days. minimum. But I mean, let's say 21. She said 21. I said, I'm with you. All right. She's a leader, man. I met Soy in the fighting in Bangkok. There were shootouts and everything else. Soy was always in the middle of it. She's a straight up leader. And so she's like, I'm going 21. She must have known that I would take the bait and say, I'm going with you, you know. And so let me start to take some of these questions. Don says he didn't have a choice. The check just showed up in your account. Huh. All right, let me start at the top and try to answer as many questions as I can. I'm not going to actually, hey, Weishan, I'm not, let's see, in Czechoslovakia, hey, Oliver, I hope everything's good. You guys have been doing very well in not Czechoslovakia, but Czech Republic, right? You've been doing very well against this in abating the problems with this virus. So has Germany. You guys have been setting a great example. You know, it's probably obviously going to take a toll on Czech Republic, but I mean, you guys are great. I've been to Czech Republic many times. I was there when it was Czechoslovakia, and you know, that was bad, man. I used to see those food shortages and stuff. It was terrible. And then I was in Czechoslovakia when it became free, and then I was there when you guys split apart. I wasn't actually physically there when you did the Velvet Revolution, but I was there afterwards, and I kept going. And then all of a sudden, it was like the communism was gone, and Czech Republic and Slovakia just rose up from the dirt. You know, I mean, you guys became your awesome self that you are. And look how well, and then you stood up to China. I mean, you know, you're not exactly a big country, but you got a lot of courage like Hong Kongers. Czechs have always been known for courage. You know, there used to be a lot of Czechs in special forces back in the old days in the 50s and 60s. There was a lot of Czechs that were in U.S. Green Berets for various reasons, and they were known for their just being great soldiers. A lot of them went over to Vietnam and all that. And so, yeah, let me try to keep answering questions. But I love the way the Czech Republic has stood up to China. You guys have really angered China so much, man. I have so much respect for Czech Republic. You guys are amazing. Hey, in Fort Worth, Janet. Fort Lauderdale, hoping they do not open the beaches. You know they're going to open the beaches in Fort Lauderdale. Angeline. Hello from Bothwell, Washington State. Hope everything's good up there. Hello, John Austin. And wow, you did get a notification from my social media. That's amazing. Hey, Mark in Mississippi and Kentucky, Chad. Remember, when it comes to resilience and preparations, you need to be, the more the people around you are prepared, the more that you're good to go, right? If you're prepared and they're at your equal level, like Mormons do, then your community should be good to go, right? Because other problems can happen, though, is when you're the tall spire and everybody around you is not prepared, right? And they're freaking out and they're starving to death and you're unprepared. These things happen over and over and over, right? So that's why if you're prepping, you need to keep it secret unless you're around a community that are prepping like you and about equal to you roughly. And you guys are comparing notes and whatnot. And because, you know, you can learn from other preppers a lot. Like I just thought up yesterday the idea of the pressure cooker. And I'm sure some preppers have thought of that before. You know, if your refrigerators go bad, just dump it in the the freezer. And dump all the meat in a pressure cooker and start a stew. Of course, if you've got a freezer with 300 pounds of meat in it, you're going to need a pretty gigantic pressure cooker. Hey, Daniela, I'm doing great. And good morning, Kim, in Oklahoma and Virginia as well. You're in Baja, Ryan. Good. Good. You don't allow any government to stop me. Well, there you go. Hello in Arizona. Yes, in Alabama, Mississippi, bad cells starting at 3 p.m. Bad cells. Penny, what are you talking about? Yes, Alabama, Mississippi, bad cells. Oh, bad cells. You're talking weather cells. Yeah, I was checking the weather report before I came live. Hey, Kevin, good luck with those. Good luck. Hey, in UK. Let's see. Let's get down here to questions, actually. So many folks around the world, Georgia, Mississippi. Ismail saying the the virus is starting from white people country. No, actually, it started from China. And it's interesting how people are already trying to make this into a race thing because so many blacks are dying from it. And they say disproportionately. Is it really disproportionately? Or a disproportionate number of fat people dying from this, right? Because we know it's affecting obese people more than others. That's what the doctors are telling us. Is that disproportionate? Or is that proportionate to the number of fat people? Is it disproportionate that people with comorbidities are getting it? What's disproportionate? I mean, if you have comorbidities like obesity and whatnot, and, you know, I see a lot of people coming out on the streets in the United States in the protest, which I agree with from what I can tell, the protest. But a lot of them are quite obese and they don't have masks on. They are rolling the dice big time with their life. And will it be disproportionate if they die? The virus doesn't care what race you are. There's no disproportionate to that. That's just the virus will set its level. Hello in Cyprus. Gladys, I am getting thinner because I am not eating at all. And I feel great. Hello in Chiang Mai. That's where I'm at too. Wonderful Chiang Mai. Leela, hello. Hello in California. Let's see. Lots in California and Alabama. 22 million just in the United States. You know, there's going to be a lot of wars and conflicts and food shortages and famines around the world from this. They're already starting. You know, by the way the trajectory is looking now, my guess, intuitive, is there's tens of millions of people are going to die just from the virus around the world. Nobody knows, but that's what it's smelling like. That's what it's selling. Como says he wants $500 billion to bail out states. Wow. Yeah. And a lot of states like California and New York, they've been, you know, they're high tax states, and they're, you know, always on the verge of bankruptcy to begin with. Weishan says, have a friend in Japan, works in Tokyo, normally now moved back to her hometown, currently self-quarantining in a hotel. Food prices starting to rise for them, and they won't have food self-sufficiency. Over in Perth, meat prices seem to be rising again. Hey, let's talk about that on resiliency. First of all, I'm going to say it again, what I've been saying since January, at least 200 times now. Buy food now. Buy it now. Stock up. The prices are only going to go up. And inflation almost certainly is going to go up, and probably very fast. I've been in a lot of countries where this happens, like Czechoslovakia, back when it was communist, and then inflation just it did the same in Poland and Romania. You know, it gets so bad that coins are instantly worthless. That's why I said, what, a month ago, I counted out all those coins, right? Because I was like, take all your coins now and all your piggy banks and cash those out, get cash with them and do something with it. Maybe buy food or something. And which I did. It was like more than $200 worth of coins. Unbelievable. And so, well, not now. Bought food with it. So the reason why I say cash in your coins is because I've been to countries like Poland when suddenly the hyperinflation hits and all those coins you got, if you got $500 worth of coins, guess what? They're worthless. They will stop minting them and people will stop accepting them. So all those piggy bank coins you got will be worthless. And I mean, it could be. And it could be quite fast. And so cash in your coins. Hey, SB. And on food, also on food resilience, if you're fat, as a lot of Americans and Europeans are, and some Thais and even some Hong Kongers, if you're fat, like I got a lot of fat on me, one pound of fat, if you're a big man, will get you through a day, easy. 1 pound of fat is easily going to get you through a day. That's like 3,500 calories, right? 1 pound of fat is about 3,500 calories, right? So you're easily going to get through a whole day. So let's say you're fat and you got 50 pounds of extra fat on you, right? Think about that. That's 50 days you don't have to eat. Think about that. I mean, I just gone 11 right now. The longest I've gone before is 20 days without food. So basically, you're just cashing in that, you're cashing in and also making yourself more resilient against that virus because it's killing fat people, right? So if you're fat, you need to fast with me and get it off. Like, I'm going to get all my fat off, not all of it. You need to keep some of it, of course. And I'm going to get a lot of my fat off to make me more resilient against the virus, for starters. And also, if there's conflict in the United States, I need to be in really good shape to run around in case there's fighting or whatever. And so, so I got to get back into that sort of combat shape. All right. And let's see. Julie Cheney in Georgia. Hello. Let's see. Danielle. Hey there, stranger. Glad to see you're still around. I'm definitely still kicking. Hope all is well. Funny you mentioned Japan. I've been curious as to how things are going over there in Japan now that the second wave is hitting. We're not, okay, I watch Japan every day as well, chatting with some of my Japanese friends today. We're not in a second wave. People keep saying that, but we're not in a second wave. We're still at the very front end of the first wave. We're not in the second wave at all. This is the first wave, and we're at the front end of it. I mean, it hasn't even spread that much around the United States yet. Japan hasn't really been seriously hit with it yet. And it's first wave. It's first wave for sure. So be cognizant of that. I mean, when they keep talking about flattening the curve, in reality, it looks like it's, okay. Now, we all know, most of us know by now, the choices are pretty simple and grim. The more you open up, the more casualties you're going to take. And the object that they're trying to do now is not overwhelm the hospitals, right? Because that'll lead to more case fatalities, right? More people that get sick who actually die. Excuse me. And so what are we going to do? A lot of Americans are making their choice heroically, bravely. They need to go to work. They want to go to work. They don't want to sit around and wait for handouts. I don't want no handouts from the government. They want to go to work, right? And our companies are in dire straits. So which way do you want to go with this? I mean, hit the spike high. The hospitals will definitely be overwhelmed, and we'll take more fatalities right up front. But then maybe we'll get herd immunity soon. However, this virus looks like it possibly causes severe long-term damage. This is so unclear because it's such a new virus. So severe long-term damage to some people's physical bodies, right? And so who knows what's happening? Flattening the curve and dragging it out the time is trading the economy for time in order to hopefully develop therapeutics or discover which therapeutics like ivermectin or whatever that might work. But at the same time, our economy, there's so many threats on the board here. We're at war. There's not just, the virus is not the only threat. Then we've got the economy, which can lead to civil war in the United States, or certainly civil unrest. We already see it starting up in Virginia and Michigan and other places. Civil unrest is already kicking up. We see it. It's lightweight. It's in the front right now, but it could get very serious. Actually, we don't know. Nobody knows. And so, but also there's this other threat, China. So we got major threats for the United States and many other countries. Is the virus. We can survive that even if we took 5% overall casualties in the United States. That would be more than 15 million dead. We'd still survive. But at the same time, there's the economy. That's a massive deal. And then there is China. And if our economy totally crumbles and we go into the worst Great Depression ever, which is the way we're heading right now, think about the threat that China poses if they attack Taiwan or Hong Kong. What are we going to do? How are we going to help Taiwan when we got starving Americans? Think about it. We're not going to. I mean, that's the bottom line, and China knows it. Let's see. I'll try to answer some questions. May the force be with you as well. Pamela, and those New York City apartments are so small and not much room to store food. See, that's another problem as well. This could so hugely spike, of course, if we just relax and everybody goes. Because remember, there's cases all over the place now. A few months ago, there was sprinkled cases, and then we got into the, as Chris Martinson would say, cluster, cluster, and then boom, right? And so case, cluster, cluster, boom. That's what Chris Martinson would say. He's got a great show, by the way. And but a few months ago, it was just cases here and there sprinkled around, and then you got these clusters, and then it boomed in New York. And that's what it's set to do around the country. But think about it. So now you got all these active cases out there, right? Huge. And they're increasing by the second. So if you just suddenly dump out onto the streets, you're probably going to get burned like a volcanic eruption, because you come out among a lot more cases than were there when you went off the streets. And so then you can have this epic spike, right? It can be incredible. Nobody knows, but chances are it would be really bad. So, but what are we going to do? Go ahead, take our casualties? I'm starting to lean in that direction, because knowing we'll take a huge amount of fatalities. We're going to take a huge amount of fatalities one way or the other. No way around that. The question is, do we take those and our economy's gone, and we take even more casualties from that, and we got states that want to split off like California, and we end up in another civil war? Think about that. There's a lot more going on here than this virus. All right. Yeah, and those little apartments, though, people go out to work and they come home and bam, infect their family. We've already learned since January and February that people get it somewhere at work or whatever, and then they go home, boom, the whole family's got it. Family clusters. That's what the infectious disease experts have been calling family clusters. So continue to stockpile food, definitely. Pochaman is saying, Mike, how long, I touched my face, but that's okay. I wash my hands constantly with soap. My eyes a little dry. Mike, how long do you think people need masks? I'm trying to estimate the time frame that we need to wear a mask. I'm also intended to donate some of my masks to those who has need for them. Oh, I would, couple years. That depends on so many things. It depends on, if you get infected or no longer infected, but can people get reinfected from this? See, these are all questions that nobody knows the answers to yet. So if you can get reinfected, you're going to need to wear your mask for a long time until we have a vaccine, which I don't buy this, that it'll be 18 months. I don't buy that at all. It doesn't make sense. It would be the fastest vaccine in the world. And people keep saying, we'll just pump extra oomph in it. Well, we've done that to cancer and other things for many years. AIDS, there's still no vaccine for HIV AIDS. There's no vaccine for SARS-1 or SARS-2, and this is SARS-3, right? There's no vaccine for a lot of things that have been around for years. Why don't we have a vaccine for cancer? Why don't we have a vaccine for, we haven't cured cancer, and there's probably trillions of dollars have been put into cancer. I don't know. Countries around the world, Russia, China, Japan, Australia, United States, of course, people around the world for probably centuries have worked on cures for cancer, and we still don't have it. I don't think that there's going to be a vaccine in 18 months. I wouldn't count on that. Let's put it this way. If there is, extra bonus. This is how I treat myself, by the way. That's also mineral water. I need the minerals because I'm fasting. But it's expensive water, but that's my treat. Other people are out there, swiggling whiskey or whatever. I'll drink my expensive water sometimes. Actually, I don't drink it every day. It's expensive. All right, let me keep answering questions. But I'm going to drink it now. Let's see. Wayshawn says, also, they don't seem to have enough testing capacity. People showing symptoms and are confirmed to have been in contact with a known carrier. You're unable to get tested. Oh, it's a big problem. Big problem. Pamela says, when you live in an apartment, it is, how do you hook up your unit to a generator? I don't know how you're going to do it. I mean, it depends on your sort of apartment, right? I mean, there are quiet generators you could put on the balcony, but I don't know. I'm sure every situation is different. In some countries, you could just do it on the balcony, and other countries that you'd probably cops would be there. Yeah, resilience without investment or very little investment is good. Like I think a big pressure cooker adds to my next level of safety in case. Also, you think about what that does. That allows you to buy meat that's about to go bad, and just take it and cook it all up. You know what I mean? I've often bought meat that's just about to go. I'm big time into saving. You know what I mean? Because I throw away extremely little food, almost nothing. I mean, I'll throw, as long as the food's not chasing me around the house and it's like gonna eat me. Yeah, I'll eat it. You know what I'm saying? I'll cook it up. I won't. It can be like 2 years past the expiration date. You know what I mean? I'll eat it, as long as it doesn't have the wrong stuff growing on it. Hello in Utah, David. Y'all should be fine in Utah. But think about the situation. Mormons are squared away, and they're known for great preparations, right? So imagine other states around you are not prepared. Remember what I talked about. The old timers say it all the time. It's the old people. I learned most of this from old people. Old people are like, son, if the people around you aren't prepared, you need to be more prepared. That's just old wisdom. That's not me making it up. That's old people. Old people, you need to have this, you need to have that. You need to raise your own fishing worms. You need to, have a fishing pole, know where to go fishing, all that sort of stuff. Like in Florida, listen, if you're in Florida, there is plants all over the state of Florida that you can eat like crazy, like growing on the side of the road. There's a book on it, I think, like edible plants of Florida. Same in Hawaii. There's loads of there's a book, I think, on edible plants in Hawaii because I've looked at it. But there's one, I'm almost sure there's a book in Florida, edible plants of Florida. Well, look up the place where you're at for edible plants. There's edible plants all around you. You know what I mean? They're growing out there. Oh, those flowers are nice. Actually, they're edible. They might be, they might be poisonous and kill you. But, like cattail, cattails, you can make flour out of the, you go into the water and you pull it out, and I used to do thousands of, you can pull out the cattail. That's the big reeds that are on the lakes around like Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas. You can go down there and pull them out, and the bottom white part is edible. You can make flour out of it and that sort of stuff. It's quite edible. And so, and then the actual cattail itself, the brown part, you can make torches out of those. We used to do that. You can make all kinds. You can make pillows out of those. They're fluffy. You can make insulation. Those cattails are very useful, right? So there's stuff all over whatever country you're in. There's stuff there that you don't know about because you always had food in the stores, unless you happen to be into this sort of thing. But you're surrounded by stuff you can eat that doesn't have a label on it because it's growing in the yard, and you didn't know it was edible. So, yeah. And so think about that wherever you're at in the world. Look up now and study these things. Danielle says, Wayshawn, I'm hanging in there, staying home. Husband is an essential worker here, so the risk is scary. It's amazing to see how many in the public are revolting against these quarantines or not wearing masks. Some fools like dry good are harder to locate here, but still okay. Many are protesting here to reopen the economies. That's a tough one, Danielle. Danielle, make sure, get you dry foods. Do it. Dry beans, rice, of course. So many things that you can, last a long time on. Honey never goes bad. Honey never expires. So many things that you can, eggs, go stock up on things like white vinegar so you can pickle eggs and learn how to, if you don't know how to, a lot of people already know how to do it. If you don't know how to pickle like cucumbers, or you can pickle practically anything in the world, right? I mean, you can pickle like crazy. You can make your own sauerkraut. You can do all that stuff, and it's super simple. It's not complex. You don't even need a cooker. You know what I mean? You know what you need for pickles? You just get the cucumbers and wash the bad boys off. Cut the little stem off that goes to that came from the cucumber plant, and then you need some sea salt and just a few garlic cloves. You don't even need those, and some dill or whatever that you want, and that's it. And some water. That's all you need in a jar, and then you can have some great Polish style pickles, man. The best pickles I've ever had in the world by far, Poland. Yeah. Penny says, power out, cook and can the meat, other perishable food in the freezers. Yeah. Actually, I need to get a canning pressure cooker so that I can do that. I was just looking today where to buy, like 50 of these, because I want to get I'll just start canning, because there's so much stuff, as you know, that you can get in the fresh markets. There's a fresh market not far from me. I was in 2 fresh markets today, actually, and so you can get all kinds of stuff, and it's so much cheaper. It's very cheap. And that's very good, came straight from the field like that morning, you know what I mean? And so, you can just take it and can it, pickle it, whatever, Definitely keep a gas stove as a backup. Always, you should have a gas, if you go on electricity, you should have a gas stove as a backup anyway. Ewan Kip Moon says, I hope Nancy Pelosi has a backup generator. Wouldn't want her ice cream to melt. That's the first time I think I've ever heard you say something political. SB Lewis, did you sleep on the ground with camel spiders? Of course, man. I was sleeping on the desert floor a lot. I never got bit, not to my knowledge. Let's try to answer questions. Hello, Diane at Hamilton, Georgia, just north of Columbus. At least you got good, well, I don't know if you got good weather today. I was looking at the weather reports. I hope everything's good there. Biogas runs cars in Brazil. Biogas is very good. All right, I'm just answering questions now. So if you got any questions, throw them up, and I'm going to try to answer them. Yeah, you need canning lids as well, Penny. If I can't get those, I'm going to order them from the United States. They're on Amazon. I was just looking at them a couple hours ago, actually. And you can buy all these on Amazon as well, but I would rather get them right here in Thailand. Hey, Barbara. Hope everything's good over in UK. I was with one of Barbara's relatives in combat in Afghanistan, EOD. Unfortunately, he was killed in combat. Brave man. Rest in peace. Penny Sanford, my family survived the Great Depression. I grew up being indoctrinated with those lessons. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I heard so many stories about that. And it's, because it sticks with me, too, because I heard those stories so much. Old people would always talk about it. Be prepared. It's coming again, son. It's coming again. And you'd be like, really? And they're like, yeah, you don't ever know what's going to cause it either. It could be a war, could be a something, and you need to be prepared, and always prepare. Got to have enough water, got to have enough food, got to have enough ammunition, got to have all the things that you need. Fish hooks. What do you need? What do you need to resupply your food with if the store doesn't work anymore? You need fish hooks. There's a lake right there. There's 100 lakes in our town. My town where I'm from is called Winter Haven, Florida. You can look it up. Look it up on Google Earth. Look at all the lakes around us filled with fish. Frogs, snakes, everything you want to eat. Alligators. I used to catch them and eat them. Of course, then if a lot of people are hungry, they might be catching them too. So you got to keep that in mind. So you might run out. Rumi says, time to leave the city. You know, that's why preppers that live in cities, if they've got the budget, they often say, my prep house or their prep location is at least 5 days walk from the city. And there's a reason for that. You know, it's far enough away that, that people can't just quickly walk to your place, right? But close enough that you can get to it by driving, right? Hello in Thailand. Yeah, it's midnight here in Thailand. It was 12:43, 43 after midnight. The Skywise. What are the metric for assessing food supply chain in the United States? Good question. I don't know. When people start not having, remember, the food shortages that we had so far are not really food shortages. It's just out of stock. There's a big difference between being out of stock and a food shortage. A food shortage is when all the stores are out of stock, and you know what I'm saying, and they don't restock because they don't have it, because of whatever supply chain disruptions that happen somewhere along the line. Either the producers are not producing or can't be delivered, there's some war, or there's something else going on, and you just don't get the food. Marcia's saying, how long am I banned from travel to Hong Kong? I don't know. Actually, they told me I'm not banned, and I'm willing to go, and I'm welcome to go back the next day, they said. But of course, I'm in the computer and and not going to get in. But I will try again at some point. Yeah, Lois says they won't take our guns without a fight. I know they won't. They will not take the guns without a fight. They'll go for it. Yeah. Yeah, David says when they can't screw with the Second Amendment, they screw with the First. You know, Australia, Canada, UK, they don't have freedom of speech. Kiwi land, New Zealand doesn't have freedom of speech, right? Those are all part of the, empire, right? The United States has more or less freedom of speech, more or less. But they don't have freedom to have weapons or freedom of speech, which, they're just under the thumb of those in power, really. Zerion saying, not sure if the 4 June vigil will still be held this year. I wonder. Rumi says, Michael, this pandemic will strike in waves. There is an independent documentary about science. Yeah. The epidemiologist, it's well described, the waves. I mean, we get a wave of, the seasonal flu every year, right? But we're not into the second wave of this one yet. This is still the first wave rippling out of China. It's really not long out of China. Keep in mind, and it wasn't until March, right, that last month that the World Health Organization even declared it a pandemic. Of course, I declared it a pandemic in January, as did Steve Bannon and Chris Martenson, and a few more of us did. A few more of us who were paying attention. We're like, hey, this could be very serious. That's why I was on the pandemic show 2 or 3 times with Steve Bannon. Penny Stanford says, lazy Americans equals trash or entitlement class. That's right. I mean, that's why we call them trash. We're not, PC about it. Some of us aren't. We're like, oh, you're lazy and you want handouts? You're trash. And that's just the way we look at them. It's like, I'm just telling you the truth. I know it may sound, oh, wow, I can't believe he said that, but that's the way we look at it. A lot of us do. Oh, wow, so many questions. I just shot down to the bottom. Susan Wisemore, me too. Foxfire put out the 40th anniversary edition. I don't have it yet. Foxfire is great. Foxfire shows a lot of the old ways of living. It's been a long time since I picked one up. Old ways of living, like, how to boil the skin off a hog and stuff like that. How to, which plants you can use for medicinal purposes, like up in the mountains in North Carolina or whatever. I remember one scene in one of the Foxfire books. I think one of the old mountain lady was eating an eyeball from a hog or something. Is that right? That was 20, 30 years ago I read that. Larry says, Michael, did you see that Macy's is filing for bankruptcy? JCPenney's is considering this. Oh, man. I mean, think about that for Walmart and others who stay in business. If they stay in business, which I imagine they probably will. I mean, they'll pick it up. Amazon will pick it up, right? Penny Stanford, Walmart had pre-COVID prices on canning jars and canning lid rings, but one had to pick them up in person. No shipping available. Oh, interesting. Michael Rizzo says, another good trick is Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers to store bulk beans and rice. Oh, yeah. Yep, that'll work. Hey, Larry. Michael Rizzo saying, look into YouTube videos on rocket stoves. You can build them out of bricks and cook. Yeah, I've made rocket stoves many times. Another good item is Tattler reusable canning lids. I've never used those, but rocket stoves are easy to mix. But yeah, they're very easy and they're very effective and they're fuel, more or less, fuel efficient. Oryx, what's Oryx? Oryx, you're talking about that four-legged animal. Where are you at? Or McCandless, Kathleen, where are you at? Margot Grove, what is the news in Thailand saying about the virus? Where it comes from? Some people realize it came from China. A lot of Thais do. But keep in mind, Thailand is deeply within the information sphere of China. And the United States is, for that matter. That's why you see so many of our media still pulling the water for CCP. But a lot of Thais are quite educated and realize this came from China. They're not fooled by China. But some are. A lot are fooled. Virginia says, don't bother with Amazon. Anything remotely useful for the new reality has price incredibly high. A $4 local item is $14 on Amazon or eBay. Good Lord. If you have about 50 of these, I'll buy them. Let's see. Crawdads. Frogs taste like chicken legs. I used to catch crawdads all the time. Frogs, not so much, but sometimes. Sauerkraut's great. You can make it yourself. It takes very little time and effort to make sauerkraut. It's super freaking easy. Barry says, modern prepper. Extra grocery cards. Pam Sellards. My mom grew up in West Virginia during the Depression. She always preached about being prepared. Oh, yeah. Those lessons from that era are invaluable. Like Greg says, I'm a 62-year-old Boy Scout, so you'll be squared away. Now you got to, spend a lot of your time teaching the younger people. Luckily, a lot of the old people invested time into me, and that's why I'm always prepared. I'm like a Boy Scout, too. You know what I mean? That's why I'm not worried. Although, every day, remember what they'll say in the Army, you can always improve your fighting position. So every day, I think, how can I improve this somehow? And yesterday, I thought of the idea of the pressure cooker in case I really can't rescue the meat from my freezer. I'll pressure cook it. And that's a simple solution. And then I'll just make a ongoing perpetual stew, a hunter stew. Pam Sellard says, my mom grew up in West Virginia during the Depression. She always preached about being prepared. Yep. Eduardo said, just finished reading Close Danger, Danger Close. That's my first book. Thank you. Excellent book, you say. I'll read it again. Do you ever keep in touch with Roy, the crazy Brazilian driver from DLI? No, I know. I've wondered what happened to him so many times. I don't know what happened to Roy. I'd love to. I wonder where he went to. He was a great guy. He was a crazy driver though, man, Roy. He was a nut, man. He was Brazilian. You know, Brazilians drive like nuts, you know. And but he was a great guy, super smart, very, very smart. You could tell he probably had good parents. But they didn't teach him how to drive. I don't know. He just scared me. And Kim Barlow, growing season is starting. Start filling your backyard. That's right. Margot, is Thailand supporting the story that the virus came from Wuhan? Not on the whole. I think a lot of people get it now, although China is trying to sell that here, of course. You know how it goes. China's always trying to sell their story. Governor here just found the state stockpile of Where are you at, Rachel? Governor here just found the state's stockpiles of PPE. What were they, hidden somewhere? Don't they have a state inventory that you can look up on the computer? You know what I mean? Maybe not. Maybe they need to get to work on that. Part German saying, I have solar light too. That's my backup in case there's no electricity. That's great. But, you know, rainy season's coming too, so you got to be prepared for that. So we might not get some sun some days. You know how rainy season is in Thailand. It's like Florida. You know, it's can be, you know, no sun sometimes. Shelley says, Coleman stove with plenty of propane tanks with a large pressure cooker. Just make sure to have reusable lids. Investment in jars is steep. Tatler lids are great. Tatler lids. I gotta look those up. Kathy Chan is saying, people carrying guns and their constitutional rights to force the government to reopen the states with the issue of those whom recover from the virus can relapse. China and Korea already had cases like that. You see, that's a problem, Kimmy. I mean, that's a huge problem. I mean, that's such a massive potential problem that it can't be understated. Gladys, protests right now where I live asking the Brazilian army to take over in Brazil. Cars honking like crazy. Are you seeing them like right out the window? Leslie saying weather has been horrible in Texas. Headed east. Good Lord. Because that's the way our weather generally goes, is that direction. Except in hurricane season, they'll shoot up the other direction, right? Barbara Summey, North Georgia, good weather. South Georgia near Fort Benning could be bad. I hope not. Cork Graham, we make sauerkraut and kimchi every. Do you like the kimchi you make? I'm thinking about. I'm going to make some of that here on the Alaska homestead. It also prevents inflammation, which is what leads to health issues for many. I'm going to make some kimchi. Dehydrated dry apples, peaches, strawberries, blueberry. I got loads, Margaret. You won't believe it. I got enough to keep a horse happy. Let's see. Kim Barlow. Susan, I have my copies from years ago. How to make soap, candles, etc. Oh, you must be talking about Firefox. Firefox is worth it. There's all kinds of old knowledge there. I like old knowledge, you know what I mean? But new knowledge is important too, because there's new things out there and we have to adjust to them. So there's new techniques that weren't available, 50 years ago. But the old ways, there's a lot of wisdom in there from people that just lived out like my grandparents. They shopped in stores, but like when I was riding down the road with my grandfather in his pickup truck, if there was a turtle crossing the road, I did this many times. Turtle crossing the road, he would just stop the truck. He didn't have to say a word. He'd stop the truck. I'd run out, get the turtle, put it in the back, and we'd eat it for dinner. We did that all the time. And I'd go hunting out the backyard and come back with a rabbit. My grandmother would hear the shot, bang. And then, 30 minutes later, she's got the rabbit cut up and she's frying it, Super fresh. We'd go, my grandfather, we love to eat grits. I love grits. And if there was any grits left over, which is a sin, they never get wasted though, because we put them in the compost. And in the compost, my grandfather grew earthworms, right? And then he would use those earthworms to go fishing. And then we would eat the fish, right? And so, and then, you know, we would eat that, and then leftovers would go back to the compost. Think about that little circle of life right there. You know, any leftover food goes to compost, helps with the fishing worms. We go fishing, catch the fish, goes on the table. Any leftovers back to compost. You know what I mean? It was a super efficient way of life. Penny Stanford, canning. You can also can water, sterile water for medical uses. Can washcloth and water, sterile bandages for wounds. You can also use urine. Urine, something I learned in the Army, actually. You can use urine to clean wounds as well. And people do it often, actually. Rachel looks, I can fast a long time if pickled eggs only menu. You can't eat pickled eggs and be fasting. There's no such thing as a pickled egg fast, and you know that. You know it. Let's see. Kim Barlow, you can can beans, apples, and anything. We are very fortunate to have local farmers who run markets in my state. Speaking of which, if you don't know how to can, just go ask the farmers. They always know how to do all that stuff. You know, farmers tend to be the most sensible people I meet in every country I go to, whether it's Afghanistan or America or here in Thailand. And it's like, you know, and they're always willing to help you. And they always know how to do all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? Just like, you know, you need to know how to, you know, get food out of that banana plant and not just the banana itself. You know what I mean? In Thailand, they use the whole banana tree. You know what I mean? It's like the whole thing's, they'll make an umbrella out of the leaves, or they'll make wrappers for the food out of the leaves, all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean? And so if there's farmers around you, in whatever country you're in, farmers almost always will help you. It's like, hey, how do I can this? And they'll be like, oh, I'll show you. You know what I mean? They'll show you how to do it. I love farmers. Not just because they feed us, but because they're just cool people. Meat jerky. That's right. I could just make jerky out of the meat. Dana, you hate pickles and sauerkraut. What's wrong with you? All right. That could be like a character flaw. All right. Danielle, yes, I understand that. However, not always the greatest situation with many high risk at home. Let's see. I hope I didn't miss any questions here. Yeah, Cork saying all that processed crap will kill you in the end. If it's got a label on it, it's probably crap. You know what I mean? Actually, there's a lot of good food that has labels on it. But you know, that's your sign. All right, let me try to answer. Am I missing any? If I've missed any, please put them back on the bottom, and I'll try to pick them up on the bottom. Oh, Kim says, contact the Amish stores, tons of pickled veggies. Yeah, listen, I was just online. There's Amish stores online, and Dutch as well, like Dutch store or whatever, it's online, right? So, yeah. And Amish people are really cool people. Like, I used to live in Ohio, and there's a lot of Amish people there. I love to talk with them. And they're very open, super friendly. They know how to do all kinds of stuff. There's nothing that Amish people don't know how to do. I mean, just ask them, like, whatever, and they know how to do stuff. Like canning, of course, that's simple for them, or most people do. All right. Yeah, USA does need to bring back. Hey, up in Alberta, Canada, I've been up there. Tuning in from Alberta, Canada. Where I live, not many people wearing gloves or a mask yet. People doing the 6-foot distancing. Most food shelves in the stores are full. Storage, rice, flour, sugar. Of course, in Alberta, you're not going to have any problem going hunting either. You know, y'all got. I mean, that's. You're not far from wild country. Let's see. Chewy Chadwick is saying, went fishing yesterday. Good. My middle child and I got plenty of 11-plus inch crappie and nice size white perch. Let's see. That's great. And also you get to get out with your kids and you're in the sunlight And so it's just a happy time all the way around. Micah Dixon, we used to raise catapla, which works as a kid in Southeast Texas. I don't know what that is. What is that? Joe Ann Wiggins, don't eat plants on the side of the road. The stated sprays. Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said. You're right. I mean, I said there's plants on the side of the road, but that you could eat them. I'm not saying. Actually, you're right. I mean, I would not eat them. I would eat plants away from the road because, like she says, they could have poison on them. They put the herbicide and all that crap. Basically, Agent Orange. Not Agent Orange, but other stuff. Ryan, hey from California. What are your thoughts on Governor Newsom spending $1 billion of taxpayers' money on masks from Chinese source? Well, because our government is so incredibly stupid, where are they going to get them from? Although it would be nice to put that $1 billion into getting masks being made in the United States. Margot, hibiscus, marigolds. Yeah, there's so many things we can eat. Look at China, what they've done. They've weaponized their inventory, even though they're the ones that spilled this thing. They've threatened the United States to cut off our pharmaceuticals. We were so stupid. Our government were so stupid. Some of us have been warning about this for years, but I've learned more about how dependent and non-resilient we are against China. Just recently, for instance, that we have so much dependence on the drugs. They can just cut them off, There you go. Tony Martinez, wife is from Japan, and I see folks wearing masks a lot of the time, and it's because Japanese are smart. And in my business travels in Asia, I see many people wearing masks when they don't feel well. Japanese are more smart, and they're more socially responsible. Margot saying Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota are all fine. No reason for those states to completely shut down. Yeah, I've been to all those states, man. I love every one of those states. Chewy Chadwick, local supply of meat is great in my neck of the woods. Good. Court Graham says 2008 to now has been economic borrowed time paid for with fiat currency. Yep. You can only print it up so many times, and then you get to the Zimbabwe million. I've seen those $1 million bill. They got these bills that are like $1 million or 50 million or whatever. I don't remember these giant bills. All right. Let me shoot down to the very bottom. Joseph says, my wife is Filipina. We survive for sure. That's because, Filipinas, they're like my grandparents. They know how to make do. You ever had that Filipino stew? What's it called? Filipino. It's sort of like a hunter stew. It is good. Filipinos love food just like Thais do. Filipinos got some good food, and they'll do it very cheaply. Filipinos obviously love seafood because of Philippines, but they can cook Filipinos can make do, and they can do it they can make top-notch food very inexpensively. Gladys is saying, wondering how it is true the Amish own Amana. Oh, you mean the Amana that? Oh, I don't know. Penny Sanford, I'm sorry. Question: what do you see as an estimated time frame for normal people to turn to crime for food? Oh, right now, like last month. Normal people to turn to crime for food. Our law enforcement affected by virus, prison cell. Oh, right now. As soon as they get hungry, they'll turn to crime if there's no way to get food. The moment they get hungry, within days maximum. Especially if you got kids to feed. I mean, most people I think would turn to crime if they don't have any way to get it. If they've got kids to feed. Hey, Iris Law, good noted. Danger close. Thank you so much. Read it. You might be surprised. I'm probably not who you think I am. Let's see. Georgina Madigan Stoner. Hi from New Jersey. Out doing yard work. I'll have to listen to replay later. Well, just take me out with you. Take your radio out or whatever. Let's see. Here in Ohio, we have lots of local farms and large Amish community. Amish, they're good people. Good people. Penny Stanford, what are the similarities, differences between sauerkraut and kimchi? I think the spices. Sauerkraut has, like kimchi, have more peppers and more. Kimchi has more stuff, right? It's busier. You know what I mean? And but I don't know specifically, but I believe it's just a little busier with more stuff in it. Sauerkraut tends to be simpler. Like in sauerkraut, there'll be the cabbage, of course, and some not olives, but garlic, cloves. Some people will put just a few little things, maybe a couple peppers, but not a lot. Vicky, you can salt box meat if you don't have a pressure cooker. I'll just do that. I'll go buy a bunch more salt. Alan says you're going to go to a Big Mac fast. Well, that's going to... Good luck. Joe Seawright. Dug out my old copy of Danger Close. Reading it again. Good stuff. Thank you, Joe. Will Bill Gurley please report to the main office? Most people that read that don't get that, actually. They don't actually understand what happened with that chapter. There was more to it than... Actually, a lot of women get it, the Bill Gurley chapter. A lot of women do, but almost no men actually understand that chapter. But when women get that chapter, they'll send me messages. Like when I'm talking about my book, Danger Close, there's a chapter in there about Bill Gurley, and I'm not going to give it away. But there's something kind of hidden in that chapter. And it's kind of hidden. I did it on purpose. It's kind of hidden in plain view. But I was actually surprised at how few people get it. Almost no men, and I say a lot of women. I would say it's not a majority, though. It's not a majority. There's something hidden in the Bill Gurley chapter. And when people get it, they'll send me a message like, oh, wow. I got it after I finished the book, that sort of thing. Shelley Halfley. Carla Emery's book, The Encyclopedia of Country Living, is a phenomenal resource. It's about 3 inches thick, and woman covers everything. I mean everything. Encyclopedia of Country. Let me write that down. Let me see. Carla. I hope they have it on ebook. Carla Emery. I love reading books like that. My grandparents used to read them all. The Encyclopedia of Country Living. Okay. It's funny how many people have knowledge up in their head that would be very valuable to other people. They just put it in a book. It doesn't have to be great writing. I don't care about that. It doesn't even have to be, proper grammar. Just put it down, and because it can be super valuable to others. People that know how to do country living, that's super valuable information, especially if it's for people living in that same general area of the world, because then the problem set's similar with the weather and the critters that are around there. Barbara says, North Korea does not have the virus. Why? Because they lie about it. Let's see. Okay, Shelley, I'm going to look that up when I get off. That book, Carla Emery's book. Shelley says, Carla Emery's book, The Encyclopedia of Country Living, is a phenomenal resource. It's about 3 inches thick. For people that don't know inches, that's a big book. It's about 3 inches thick, and the woman covers everything. I mean everything. Of course, I just did it like this, 3 inches. It looks 3 inches or bigger because it's closer to the camera. It's like when you go fishing, this pin looks giant, doesn't it? It's like when they hold up the fish, they're like, that's a giant fish because it's close. It's called called a forced perspective in photography. Forced perspective, and you can do tricks with it, like whether accidentally or on purpose. Forced perspective is when it looks, closer than, or it looks bigger than it really is. You can see though it's actually not that big. Okay, Kim says, I have old oil lamps and bottles with oil already. Larry, Firefox, you can get those on Amazon because I looked at them again, but I didn't see them on ebook, I think. Wait a minute. Did I buy one on ebook? Let me see. I have to open my Kindle here. Let me open it up. But you can get them on Amazon. Firefox is great, man. I mean, you should read that. It's just fun to read, too. Let me see. I might even have it right here, but it's been a while since I've looked. Oh, let me see. Firefox. Firefox is actually a type of, of plant, actually, too. You can see them at nighttime. They'll glow. I've seen them up there, actually. Let me see. Firefox. Oh, my book, my dispatches on Go Bar Gas were in this book. I can see it on my Kindle here. A book that just came out called Energy, Supply and Demand. It was, I didn't get paid for it, but it's an academic book. My work shows up in a lot of academic books, which is kind of strange because I don't have a PhD in anything, right? But my stuff shows up in a lot of interesting places like that. But look up Firefox, and you can see yeah, that's right. Diane says Firefox from Georgia. That's right, North Georgia, wasn't it? And Ing says, I stock up big candles. Yeah, I got a bunch too, just in case we don't have electricity. No light. I think many Thais do as well. Oh yeah, Thais are ready. A lot of candles are important. McCandless, about 300, 400 pounds dressed out. You must be talking about a moose or an elk or something, or a big giant mule deer. How big do mule deer get? What's the biggest mule deer? Do they get 600 pounds? I don't know. That seems too big, doesn't it? 400? I mean, whitetail, more like, 120 in Florida or something like that. Susan Wise Moore, I'm sure you have gone over this, but what are you defining as fasting, and what day you on, and why did you do it? Oh, I'm on day 11. And for me, as in most things that I talk about, I'm intense about it. You know what I mean? I'm on day 11. To answer your question. And many reasons I'm doing it. One is, it's just good for you. And by the way, if you take your camera, on your phone camera or whatever, or your iPad, and you photograph Venmo or PayPal or this Cash App, it'll open right to it, and you can donate to my work, which I would hugely appreciate. Patreon is actually extremely helpful, but they don't seem to have a QR code. These are called QR codes for people that don't know. But if you take your camera from your smartphone and photograph that now, you'll go straight to donate, and I would hugely appreciate it. But I'm on day 11. I highly recommend that you fast unless you have type 1 diabetes or something like that. Okay. El Paso. Oh, McCandless Kathleen saying, El Paso, Texas. Oryx is a huge exotic goat from Africa, imported for hunting, have basically taken over New Mexico and West Texas. Very large. Well, if they're good eating, you know what to do. Rachel says, depends on how many of their children have died from starving. Larry Summerdorfer says, Firefox book, hog dressing, log cabin building, mountain crafts, cool stuff. Yeah, I remember the hog dressing. I remember the hog dressing chapter. And, different people, when people came to America from, like, say, Germany or Norway or whatever, they made their cabins differently, or from Sweden or whatever. They have different, like, people that know what they're looking at with cabins or barns, they could tell where you came from. They could tell. They could look at your cabin. They could see where your chimney is, right? Is the chimney in the middle of the cabin or is it on one of the sides? Who did them in the middle? That was Norwegians, right? I don't remember. But some of the other, it would just be different construction. So you could basically tell who's where they're from in that cabin way back when by looking on how it's built, or at least it's an indicator. Maybe neighbors helped them. Hey, Jennifer in Canberra, thank you hugely for the support. Greatly need it. Thank you. You must be talking about Firefox, Greg. Michael Martin, day 11 on fasting. It's not that big of a deal. It feels good, man. It feels really, really good. I enjoy it. Like when I get finished with this, I'll go lay down and either on the floor or on the couch probably, because I still got some work to do, but I'm going to just meditate for a while, relax, kind of clear the slate. You know what I mean? And it feels good to fasting, man. It feels good. Katrina Staunchford says, How to Stay Alive in the Woods by Branford Angler, originally published in 1956. I think I read that book, actually. I'm almost positive I read that book, but that was like 700 years ago. Yeah, there's a series of Firefox books on Amazon. Cyril Charlie says, that is a famous book. You talking about my book, Danger Close? Or, Firefox? Let's see. Iris Law says, to be honest, I can't imagine there are no electricity or waters in Hong Kong. Crazy. Be careful with that. Be careful. You should always be prepared for that. It can definitely happen. Absolutely. Absolutely can. Well, it happened already. It happened last year. Remember, somebody attacked. Remember when I published that one area of Hong Kong might not have electricity that night, and then it didn't have electricity? But that was due to the insurgency. The virus, Kimmy Chan saying, the virus actually bring out the worst of their personality. This is a thing. Some people, this will bring out the best in them, their leadership capacity, their imagination, their resilience, their calmness, and their thoughtfulness, mindfulness. And then others, they'll just show them for what they are. One of the great things about war and conflict, if there is such a thing, great thing about war and conflict, because this is a war, is that you'll instantly make friends that you would never even have met before, or you wouldn't have even talked with them because you're in a different class or whatever, or you just don't. Why would you? They're in a different world or something. But then you get to know people. And you see, you'll make friends so fast in conflicts, so much faster. Because in normal civilian life, it takes me a long time to warm up to somebody to be a real close friend, right? But when I was in the wars and that sort of thing, I made really quick friends, like Soy in the fighting in Hong Kong. I'm not Hong Kong, in Thailand. We became instant friends, like a couple of weeks. We were, pretty close friends at that point. And so, which is normal. And you get into a conflict and suddenly you'll make really close friends and they're going to be friends for life. They're friends. Hey, if there's a good side to wars and conflicts, that's it. You make really good friends. And you'll, people that you see doing well, you'll, just respect, Do you take chloroquine? Larry says, negative. I don't even have any. I've got some ivermectin, but I'm not taking that either, but I haven't. Sonia Alexander, who from EP in this video? You must be talking about El Paso. Man, y'all got some good steak dinners down in El Paso. Been a long time since I've been there. They say, David L. Carter, my Danish mother grew up on a farm that had a round barn built by her uncle. That's probably just the Danish way of doing it. Encyclopedia of Country Living. Rachel says, LOL, yes. Riding with Germans, laughing at how Swedes build buildings. Are you doing it right now? Are you riding down the road with Germans? Let's see. If so, tell them hello. Sonia says, Michael, I don't know that about QR codes. I wish I could have known a week ago. Yeah, I'll show you. I'll show you the QR codes. You can pull out your camera and or you can just screenshot it. And all you got to do is, these things are great, man. I use QR codes all the time for checking stuff, information about some product that I'm seeing or whatever. And I just take out my smartphone and put the camera onto the QR code, and it'll open up the exact link. For instance, if you put your camera on my PayPal one, it'll open up to donate straight to my PayPal account. Pretty cool. All right. Jennifer Hack saying, sorry, I missed everything so far. We'll watch after. We are planting winter vegetables in the southern hemisphere. I hope everyone up north is planting if they can. You are lucky it's spring, keeps you at home. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Let me, my social media reaches around the world. All right, Wei Sean, good night down in Australia. Got to sleep now. Need to work at 6 hours time. That's good you're working. We'll review the recording for this broadcast later. I hope everything's good, Wei Sean, and sleep well. Iris Law, today we got new information about the virus. Stay at the surface of the material. The virus cannot survive copper. Yeah, actually, I was looking for copper doorknobs recently. I like doorknobs that have antimicrobial powers. Some metals do. So you can buy doorknobs and other things that have antimicrobial properties. I don't like, nasty doorknobs. And doorknobs tend to be nasty, right? Actually, some kids came up, I think they were teenagers, came up with an idea on how to make a pretty sanitary doorknob. It had, how does it go for public buildings like schools or whatever? It's got the handle type, not the knob, of course. Much better to have a handle, and for various reasons. And as soon as you use it and it goes back spring-loaded, a UV light turns on and sanitizes it. Cork says, Cork Graham, we've got seedlings, garlic, and onions, and potatoes started in a rack next to the window here in Alaska. We'll start planting outside in another month. The summer we'll build a heated sunken floor below the freeze of the greenhouse to keep getting. Yeah, you said you were going to put a greenhouse in up there. That should be, excuse me, my eyes are getting dry. Oh, maybe it's because these lights are so bright. Let's see. El Paso. Let's see if there's any last questions. Let's see. Benjamin Thomas. Dogs consume protein. They also are protein. Oh, yeah. Benjamin says they also are protein. Long before a child's belly becomes distended, we will be eating things that we would not previously consider. Oh, yeah. People will go straight to cannibalism, too. Trust me on that. I've hunted cannibals, and I've studied up on them in my cannibal hunting days, and also in just Army survival, Special Forces. They had us reading all kinds of stuff, and then I read books later. You'd be surprised how quickly people go to cannibalism. Not everybody. Some people will starve to death before they do it. Others will go to it very quickly. It's not uncommon at all. And if there's mass starvation, you can absolutely bet people will go to cannibalism. Not everybody. Like I said, some will starve to death. But others will go straight to what they call long pig because people taste like pork. All right. Told to me by cannibals. Yeah. All right. So I don't see any more questions coming in. And I'm going to go ahead and shut off for the night. Thank you for everybody that supported my work. Wait, Rick's saying surfaces that hold pathogens are called fomites. Japanese are big on pioneering aseptic fomites. I thought fomites were the actual, like, when you spit, that's a fomite, right? Like entirely sterile kitchens. Japanese are smart, man. We need more Japanese in the world and less communist. All right. Thank you, Angela. And thank everybody else. I'm on day 11 of fasting. You're welcome to join me, especially if you're fat, because, you know, this disease is killing fat people. And I know you're not supposed to say fat, but let's just call things what it is. If you're fat, fast with me, and let's get rid of some of that fat. And there you go. I'm on day 11. Really looking forward to tomorrow's show. Should be good. And with Sarkis. And yeah, they call it long pig, Jennifer. Long pig. I'll tell you all about it someday. You're going to be blown away. It is unbelievable. And thank you, Cheryl and Micah. I'm going to go ahead and shut off here. Been great talking. How do I turn this thing off? Mic out.